I'm going to suggest that that we're going to set up guardrails, personal standards of behavior in the areas of money, in the areas of sexual relationships, and in the areas of communication and constant fighting. And if you can set up these personal standards of behavior in these areas, in the safe zone, it's going to help you avoid going off the cliff in either areas of money, of sexual areas, or of communication areas. Personal standard of behavior. Now, here's an example in the Bible of someone who set up a personal standard of behavior that became a matter of conscience. It's found in Daniel chapter 1. And Daniel is, just to give you a little backstory, Daniel is a young, probably mid-teens, mid-late teens, young man in Jerusalem when Babylon, a foreign power, came and conquered his city, Jerusalem, and they destroyed it. It's most horrific scenes of war that you'd ever see. They destroyed it. They killed the armies, and they killed most of the people and inhabitants in there, just laid waste to everything. And Babylon was, a terrible enemy. They were not merciful in any way. But what was custom for the Babylonians to do is when they conquered, they would take some of the smartest, best looking, wealthiest young people in that society and haul them away as prisoners of war. And this is their idea, is that if we conquer and we take the best of the best from each nation, we can train them in our culture, and it's going to make us stronger because we'll have the smartest, the brightest, the most, upstanding people in our society, and we can train him. So Daniel was hauled away as a prisoner of war with the full intention of being trained by the king and to become one of his advisors, which he later did, and one of his counselors, and using his intelligence and all of that to influence and to make Babylon stronger. Now, in the process of being trained, they had set standards of what they wanted to do. And in the training, we find in verse 8 of Daniel 1, it says this: "But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way." Now, this phrase, defile, is interesting to me because the royal food, other translations say it's the king's, meat. It was whatever, it sounded like a really nice barbecue. And that this barbecue, whatever it might be, this meat that was prepared for the king, and wine, by the way, is not defiling. Wine, whatever your stance is on alcohol, this is not, in these days, wine was not a defiler because wine was actually drank more than water because it was safer. Water was contaminated and could cause, all these illnesses. And so that's why they would drink these fermented things, because it was safe and it was healthier. And we see Jesus drinking wine. So drinking wine is not defiling. Eating meat is not going to defile Daniel. But somehow, look at this in this verse, it says, "But Daniel resolved." In other words, he set up a personal standard in the safe zone. It wasn't wrong for him to eat the meat, and it wasn't wrong for him to drink the wine. Every other Jewish, captive that was with Daniel ate the meat, drank the wine. It wasn't wrong for Daniel to do this, but Daniel resolved, set up a guardrail, a personal standard of behavior that became a matter of conscience to him, to where he believed it so much that he thought, if I eat this or if I drink this, I'm defiling myself. He put up a guardrail. And I might add that it was such a personal standard of behavior, such a matter of conscience, that Daniel was willing to risk his life to stay within the safe zone. Now, Daniel might have assumed that if I eat this meat and if I drink this wine, I'm going to give in at this level. He might have known himself. If I give in at this level, I might give in at the next level. And eventually, I'm going to lose my traditions. I'm going to lose my culture as a Jewish person. And if I lose my culture, I might eventually lose my God. To which all the other Jewish people would have said, Daniel, it's just meat, it's just wine, it's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal. Like, what do you mean it's going to lead us to there? But Daniel foresaw, and he saw trouble coming. He goes, if I give in at this level, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stop myself from going over the cliff, and I'm not willing to give up my God. To which is like, it's just meat. It's just wine. What's the big deal? Yet Daniel set up a guardrail and resolved. And when he resolved and he took this stand, he knew full well that the king probably would demand his life or kill him. And yet, it was such a matter of conscience for Daniel that he was unwilling to budge. And he made up his mind before he knew how the rest of the story would play out. We know how the rest of the story played out, but he didn't. And look at the next verse. The next verse says, now God caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel. The most important word in this verse is now. Because Daniel in verse 8 resolved. This is the standard. After he resolved and made the standard, then it says, now God showed up. See, too many of us are waiting for God to move before we make the standard. God, if you do this, then I will take a stand. If you do this, then I will do that, whatever it might be. If you show up, then I will. And Daniel resolved before. He set up a guardrail personally before, and then it says, now God caused the official to show favor and compassion.